Hi guys, here at Forces Radio. I've been asked to answer some questions. My name is Mick Hawks, X-22 SAS B Squadron, Mountain Troop for my sins. Here to answer questions. First one, how do you feel when people call you a terrorist? Good one actually. It doesn't affect me at all. And the reason being is we don't hunt specific people because of their religion or what side of the divide they're on. We tend to deal with people really who are bad people. So being called by terrorists by people that have got affiliation with terrorists, it's water off a duck's back. So it doesn't affect me at all. I sleep easy at night. Second question then. What advice would you give to someone looking to join the military? That's a really good question. So having 3 serving sons at the moment, anyone joining the military, my advice really, because of my background, I would probably advise to join the Royal Marines. The reason being is the British Army is going through a difficult phase at this present time. Whereas the Marines seem to be flourishing. So my advice really on anyone that's thinking of joining the Army specifically is reconsider and join the Royal Marines. What was the biggest challenge of yours on your selection and what got you through it? Without a shadow of doubt on selection, running up and down the hills, quite easy, pretty straightforward as long as you don't get injured. So the hardest part, and everybody will probably agree, would be the jungle phase. And when I went on specifically, you had to, forget that I've got a 3-week-old son. My wife, you totally forget all that, and you just concentrate on the job at hand. And what gets you through all that, I suppose, is thinking of the end product. You're actually joining a extremely elite military force. So that's your driving force getting through selection. Next question. What specific experience in the Falklands prompted you to decide for selection to SAS? Again, really good question. Bear in mind that I was attached to 4-5 Commando, so we did the YOMP or TAB across the island with full kit. So didn't really get to see the Special Forces operators at the time because we were busy doing our own thing. And it was only really afterwards when you came across them in Stanley that you just knew that there was something different about them. And it wasn't really the Falklands that made me decide that that's where I wanted to go. It was slightly before then when we were doing a bit of jungle training over in Kenya. And I met up with 2 SAS sergeants, they were at the time, and they just inspired me. So it's one of them things through the Falklands. It was always on the back of my mind that's where I wanted to go. Next question. How did transition from the military career into civilian life? For ex-SAS guys, the transition is pretty much straightforward. What people tend to forget is 22 SAS is very much, I know it sounds a bit difficult, very civilianised. One, because you're not in uniform all the time, you're in civilian clothing and you're dealing with civilians for most of your time. So you're not in that sort of guardsman infantry type role where your hair's cut nice and neat, discipline and all that sort of thing. SAS is slightly different. So the transition into civilian life is slightly easier, I would say, than normal military. Next question, and I do apologise for putting my glasses on. It's unfortunately old age catching up. What was your role experience like in Northern Ireland during the deployment of the late 70s, early 80s? So this was my very first deployment, really, to Northern Ireland, and it was to South Armagh in they call it bandit country. We were based in Besbrook Mill, and Newton Hamilton, so we used to rotate through. The one big lesson that I learnt really was never judge a book by its cover, and what I mean by that is we were always led to believe that the Catholics were the bad people and the Protestants were the good people, and that's just and that's predominantly because the IRA are from the Catholic community mainly. So it was a big shock really to be over there to realise that that's not the case. So my first trip to Northern Ireland was a learning curve, and realising that Northern Ireland actually is 98% of really, really nice and good people, and unfortunately 2% of bad people. Next question then. What's your favourite moment in your military career? Fantastic question. I would say, without a shadow of doubt, undercover work in Northern Ireland. Why? Massive challenge. Big challenge doing undercover stuff in a terrorist backyard. You need something about you to be able to do the job. You have to be very open-minded about the work you do. And at the end of it, it's very fulfilling. It's a fulfilling role to do. So the 18 months spent in Northern Ireland, for me, was probably the best part of my military career. Next question then, chaps. What kind of preparation did you undertake in the years leading up to your selection attempt? Fantastic. Anybody who knows people that have gone and joined the SAS know that you have to do a lot of homework. And what I mean by that is homework is on the hills. It's that hill phase at the very start. You need to understand the routes that you're going to be taking, understand where you're going. So to the point that you actually don't need your map. Your map is only a guide, but if you know the routes well enough, it just gives you a very good chance, really, of getting through that phase of selection. And bear in mind that that's not the hardest phase of selection, but it is very important to get through that phase, and very easy to come off it with injury. So the more knowledge you have of the hills that you're going to be running up and down, the better. Next question. Glasses on again. How did you decide between 2-9 Commando Royal Artillery and 5-9 Independent Commando Squadron Royal Engineers? So as you know, they're the two main Commando Army units. When I left the parachute regiment, was told that I couldn't parachute again. My options were join a commando unit, and so it was a toss-up really between 2-9 and 5-9. Some of you who may already have seen some of the podcast, you'll know that my father was attached to 40 Field Regiment in Germany, so artillery unit, and really that had the deciding factor, artillery, because I'd sort of been around an artillery unit growing up, so it just seemed to be the natural way. Bizarrely, I have never ever fired an artillery gun. The big guns that they use, a 105 light gun, that 2-9. I've never been on the guns in my life. Never done a gun course apart from when I went through basic training, because I was fortunate enough really to go straight on to the observation posts, OPs, which actually direct the gunfire. So very lucky individual. Next question. How did you cope with the disappointment of being medically withdrawn from selection, and what lessons did you take away from the experience? Coming off selection is the worst feeling you can ever imagine. People that have seen the podcast, you'll know that my first selection, I woke up in a helicopter, which is a bit surreal. And I literally got taken to the sick bay, Stirling Lines, to be told by the doctor that I was not in a fit condition to continue. And the gut-wrenching feeling of knowing that you failed selection is heartbreaking, to be honest. And I know a lot of people, they put their heart and soul into passing selection, and when they don't pass it, some people literally leave the military. For me, I was fortunate that I knew that I was going to get a second chance, and thankfully I took that second chance and managed to pass. But it's heart-wrenching. Next question then. What factors influence your decision to consider a career in the military? Good point. I always wanted to be a professional footballer. At 15 and a half, I got a trial with Lincoln City because that was the local team. It was either that or Grimsby Town because I was brought up in a little town. Not brought up really, but when I came back from Germany as a school kid, I ended up in a place called Alford, which is near Sutton-on-Sea, Skegness, that area of Lincolnshire. I was always very good at football. I've been to 14 different schools, played for every single school. So the headmaster got me a trial at 15 and a half with Lincoln City. I went up there, I played left back. That was my favourite position. And unfortunately, when we played in the game, we all had different coloured bibs on, numbers. I played left back, but the side I was playing with were always on the attack. So really didn't get much of a chance to shine, I suppose, in a defensive role. So unfortunately, life's disappointments for young kids of 17. Especially, people that all they want to do is be a footballer. To be told that you're not going to be picked, again, was quite a kick really in the stomach. But again, can't do that. Let's try Plan B, if that makes sense. Next question then, chaps. After leaving the military for 6 months, what made you realise it was a mistake, and what motivated you to re-enlist? So what this is you're probably aware that when I was in the parachute regiment, I snapped my ankle quite badly. It ended up getting pinned, and a good doctor, military doctor, said that I couldn't parachute anymore, and in effect, these were my options, and my options were to go to an infantry unit. Being indoctrinated really into the parachute regiment way, I decided that I wasn't going to be a crap at, as they called it. So I left the military, and after 6 months, realised that was a massive mistake. Going back to Lincolnshire where there's nothing really going on. I then really just thought I've got to get back in the military. It was a big mistake to leave in the first place. Let's go and have a chat. And thankfully, the Army Recruiting Centre gave me the option of going to a commando unit, which I took with both hands. Next question then. What's the best Special Forces unit? This question gets asked quite often, so I'm not going to answer it in a biased way, really. But it's 22 SAS, and the reason I say that is the diversity of the role that all the guys do. So go back to my sort of career, I suppose. 1 minute you're on the anti-terrorist team for 6 months. Next minute you're growing your hair nice and long. And doing 2 years undercover, Northern Ireland. You're coming back from that, cutting all your hair off. You're then deploying with the United Nations over in Bosnia. And then you're coming back from that, and then you're off all around the world teaching people. It's that diversity. We are, without a shadow of doubt, on a sort of level par, or the people that we think are level par to the SAS is Delta over in the States. Reason being is they're very aligned with what 22 SAS do. Unlike SEAL teams, Delta are military people through and through before they actually join Delta. Probably 50% of Delta are from the Greenberry organisation, Rangers, or Commandos, Airborne. But true military people before they actually get into, which is exactly the same as 2-2. Unlike SEAL teams who get all the credit at the moment, but they're Matlows. You know, they're Navy people first and foremost. Then go and do a course. They don't have that core military background. There are many special forces units all around the world, all very capable. Believe you me, very good at what they do. But in an unbiased way, for me, the best of the best really is 2-2. Final question, chaps. Let's see what we got now. So. What were some of the key challenges you faced during your undercover operations in Northern Ireland? Staying undercover. The reason being is SAS guys really are not the best at doing surveillance. We are a bit RoboCop. We are very much more aggressive in the way we go about our business because we want to get stuck in. So unfortunately for me, in my 18 months doing undercover work, I ended up in the helicopter quite often because I used to get not blown up, but I used to get spotted as not being normal. So the biggest challenge really. And it's also ensuring really that you're honest with what you do. So if I felt that I was blown, I would own up to it straight away. So when you go back, you have a briefing, a debriefing. You have to be honest and open. Because if you're one of these people that likes to pretend that you're very good at surveillance, and actually somebody did spot you and you didn't own up to that, you're very likely to get either you or, even worse, somebody else killed in your team. So you've got to be honest. And unfortunately, quite a few people used to recognise me as being not normal, and that's part and parcel of the job, really. So that was the biggest challenge, I would say, for undercover work in Northern Ireland. Wasn't dealing with bad people, wasn't confronting bad people. It was actually trying to stay covert, which I found quite difficult. Right, well that's all the questions finished. Thank you very much for that. If you've got any more questions that you want to ask, don't be shy. There's no such thing as a bone question. All questions are the same. But by all means, get them sent in and we'll try and answer them as soon as possible. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy.